We've made it to the end of the year, so today I'm going to give you my picks for the 10 best movies of 2019. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your picks for the 10 best movies of 2019. My list isn't the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. With that said, let's get started with some honorable mentions. First up, The Irishman, Martin Scorsese's epic return to the gangster genre. It has some fantastic performances. It's awfully fast-paced for a movie that's 3.5 hours long, and by the end of it, it packs an emotional punch. Next up is The Peanut Butter Falcon, just a sweet and uplifting, heartwarming film that comes at a very unexpected place. If I explain the plot to you, it would just sound very odd and strange, and then you watch the movie and see the bond form between these two sort of three characters and immediately understand just kind of how uplifting of a movie this is. And finally, How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. I thought this was a great conclusion to the trilogy that closed things out nicely, left things in a place that made sense. I liked the villain inside of it. It had conflict, a great family adventure. With that said, let's get started. Kicking things off at number 10 is Marriage Story. Now, this is a movie that I delayed watching as long as possible because the subject matter about divorce kind of hit too close to home for me. So it's not a movie I was rushing out to see, though I heard so many amazing things. I knew I needed to watch it before the end of the year. And it really does do a fantastic job of telling an absolutely gut-wrenching story about a relationship falling apart and the missteps and the mistakes and the decisions made out of emotion that just pour gasoline onto the fire that's already there, and you just watch it play out. But it counterbalances that with a lot of humor and likability inside of the characters. For a movie that's just brutal on so many levels, it's also very entertaining. The icing on top of all of it is, of course, the two performances from Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, who are absolutely fantastic inside of this film and demonstrate that these are true thespians that are the best of their craft, not just people that work inside of blockbusters. Put it all together and you get one of the movies that just drew out the most emotions from me this year. Next up is Dolomite Is My Name. This is a movie I did not want to watch. I saw it at a film festival. It was a secret screening, so I thought it was going to be something else, and I was actively disappointed when they said the movie was going to be Dolomite Is My Name, and then it instantly won me over. And so much of that goes to Eddie Murphy, who maybe has never been better. His character is kind of raunchy in one sense in what he's doing, but he's also very kind-natured and kind of wholesome in another sense because he just really cares about his friends and family and wants them to be successful. Add to that, it's a story about just this odd group of people kind of pursuing success and just putting their passion out there, pursuing something, fumbling forward. I just love stories like this that show how even people that don't really know what they're doing, kind of like me, can find success in this world. And so much of it just goes back to the fact that they loved and cared about each other, and it just makes for a movie that once again is uplifting and inspiring. Number 8, Dragged Across Concrete. Speaking of inspiring and uplifting stories, Dragged Across Concrete is not one of them. This is the latest film from S. Craig Zahler. All of his films are very slow and deliberately paced with long scenes that are dialogue heavy, and there's these slow burns that build to these big payoffs at the end. They have fantastic characters, and this movie is another example of that. Now, the movie takes about an hour and 15 minutes for you to even figure out what the plot is actually about, even though you're seeing all the pieces set up, and then you realize, oh, we're already in the middle of this journey, and at times it can just burst into excessive violence with gore inside of it. Other times it's just about these characters as they're like debating, should they continue down this path? Should they do the right thing? Should they do the wrong thing? All of it is captivating to me. I love the movies that he's putting together. They're not necessarily easy to watch. They're not super rewatchable, but they're very rewarding to experience. Coming in at number 7 is Knives Out. Rian Johnson's take on the whodunit is just incredibly entertaining from beginning to end. There's several different reasons for that. First off, it's jam-packed with these quirky characters that are all funny and interesting in their own way, played by fantastic actors. Second reason it's interesting is there's just a lot of really funny jokes inside of it. There's nice setups that feel earned. It's not just a bunch of cheap stuff, but because of the performances, the scenarios, and the quirks and oddities of each of these people, makes for a really funny movie. Third thing that makes it entertaining is as a whodunit, it just does a great job of every 30 minutes, there's either a twist or a reveal that just radically reframes everything that you've seen thus far or changes the trajectory of the story the way that a whodunit should work. It just feels like it keeps changing and you're waiting to find the final reveal and discovery. By the time you get to the end of it, it feels earned, it pays off properly, and it entertains you immensely. And then we have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino's fantasy version of Hollywood from the late 1960s, where essentially he creates a bunch of fun characters and we hang out with them for a day in their life and then have this big slam bang finale of how Quentin Tarantino wish history had played out. So much of what makes this movie work is the bromance between Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth, where you got one is ultra cool and laid back and the other one is so insecure in this endearing way that it's just enjoyable to watch them on this adventure. The other thing I love is the movie, while not at all story-based, has all of these intricately designed plot points and details that set up little moments all throughout the film to make the bonkers third act pay off so well for me. And as you rewatch and think through the movie, there's all these things that are being designed to make that sequence just be so enjoyable. It absolutely worked for me. I loved exploring Quentin Tarantino's version of Hollywood. So this was just a great time at the movies for me. Before I give you my top 5, here's 4 more honorable mentions. First up is Fighting with My Family, great sports dramedy that does a great job of making the humor come from the oddities and quirks of the characters rather than joke setups. And then on its sports journey, it provides all the payoff you want in a movie like this, but takes an unconventional path to get there. It sets up the tropes of the genre and then subverts your expectations of how it actually gets to that payoff. Next up is going to be Parasite, a movie that has done the incredible task of both entertaining audiences as well as winning over critics. It starts off as one thing, this kind of class warfare comedy, and then turns into this deep commentary by the end of it that does some pretty profound stuff inside of it. Then we have Jojo Rabbit, Taika Waititi's World War II satire, comedy, and drama all wrapped up into one. It can be hilarious, it can be tragic, it can be heartwarming, all in this one film. He just does a pretty remarkable job of juggling the tones inside of this film. And finally, we have Dr. Sleep, probably my favorite horror film of this year. I just absolutely connected with the characters, the themes that they were going for, and enjoyed seeing a film that is a sequel to The Shining, but doesn't really feel like The Shining because the world is so much expanded inside of this film. Absolutely a film that I had a fantastic time with. Bringing us into the top 5 is Avengers Endgame, a movie that was 11 years in the making, the end of the Infinity Saga. There's so many ways that this movie could have just crumbled under its own ambitions, and it didn't. It absolutely works and paid off. It balances all of these characters so well, and it can have emotion. It can explore tragedy and the different ways people respond to it. It's, of course, very funny as a Marvel movie, and the final act of the film is the best fan service that has ever been put on screen. In many ways, it shouldn't work. It should be over the top, all of the stuff that they put in that final battle. But because it was set up over 11 years, all of it feels earned. And so this is the movie that when I was in the theater had the biggest applause, the most cheers. This is the movie I've rewatched of my own volition and chosen to rewatch this year. The most iconic shots of the year are probably inside of this film. It's a movie that could have failed, but absolutely lived up to the hype. Number 4 is Toy Story 4. Now, I was one of the many people out there that did not want a Toy Story 4. I thought it was a bad idea to continue it after how well they closed things out with the third film. I wasn't crazy about the trailers. And then within about 10 minutes of the film, I got what they were doing. And I just loved this film. And it made me instantly realize that that original trilogy closed out Andy's story, but there was still a little bit more to tell about Woody, and this is a great character study for him. It might be the funniest of the Toy Story films. For me, just certain themes inside of it as a parent at my specific phase of life, they resonated with me a little bit more than the 3 other films, and so I just left this theater having felt so many emotions and having been incredibly entertained. Real quick before I give you my top 3, remember to share your picks down below in the comment section. We're going to disagree. We're going to have different lists. That's awesome. Let's just keep it a nice positive conversation as we're talking about the best of the year. Also, I've done a bunch of other end of year lists, biggest disappointments, biggest surprises, comic book movies. You can check them out in this playlist right up here. In third place is Joker. Now, this is a movie I was confused when they announced it because I didn't know what they were going for. Martin Scorsese was maybe producing it, and the guy that did The Hangover was going to direct it. Joaquin Phoenix was going to star in it. And then they put out the first trailer and immediately understood kind of what they were going for, kind of this modern day taxi driver with Joaquin Phoenix playing the Joker. The movie itself, I just think, is a great character study of someone descending into madness and watching all the little pieces fall apart and crumble all around them. You see the dominoes set up, and then you see them eventually get pushed over and him driven over the edge. And part of what I loved about it is that it's a movie that kind of does have different interpretations of how much of this was real, how much of it wasn't, different interpretations of his motivations, his actions, what is the movie trying to say, and it's a movie that has a lot to say. Put it all together, and it made us talk about movies and discuss them. Whether you loved it, whether you hated it, whether you thought it was shallow, whether you thought it was deep, we were talking about it, and that's what movies are supposed to do. My runner-up for best movie of the year is 1917. When I think about a film that is a true cinematic experience, this is the one that comes to mind. It's designed to be perceived as a single take from the opening shot until the credits roll as you follow these 2 World War I soldiers through the trenches trying to deliver a message, and you follow them, and it seamlessly travels throughout this day as they go through war, as they see death, and you feel the emotions, you get to know the characters, and it, because you're doing this fly on the wall camera following them setup, you feel like you are there with them in a way that very few films have ever done. There has never been a war movie that has ever made you feel so much like you are in the middle of it. And just the camera work, some of what they did was just phenomenal because you'll follow them through a field, and then at the end of it, you'll see them walk through barbed wire. The camera pans around through the barbed wire, and you look back and you're like, how did they film this? That is great filmmaking. And it's not just the visceral experience of being there. You care about the characters, you feel what they feel, and you just have a great time at the movies. Put that all together, and you just have one of the best films of the year. But of course, coming in first place is Cats, a delightful and creative spin on the Andrew Lloyd Webber classic. Wait, we appear to be an upside-down world where bad things are great things. Let's fix that. All right, much better, but really coming in first place is Ford vs. Ferrari, a classic story of people trying to achieve greatness and having to work together to make it happen. The thing that kind of elevates this movie so high for me is the fact that it manages to balance being Oscar bait drama with fantastic performances and complicated drama inside of it while being just incredibly entertaining. The characters are quirky and fun to be around, but feel like real people that you could know. The driving racing sequences are phenomenal and filled with amazing stunt work that keeps you on the edge of your seat. And just the story in and of itself of these people working to try and defeat Ferrari is engaging and interesting without needing all the sugar and spice of the comedy and the races itself. You care about the characters, you care about the narrative, the victory at the end of it, and it's so much fun all along the way. So it comes in at number 1. You can see the rest of my end of the year lists in that playlist right over there. I got comic book movies, surprises, disappointment, all of it right over there. Tomorrow, I'm gonna be ranking every single movie that I saw in 2019 in a big epic live stream. You can check that out live tomorrow, or if you're in the future, you can watch the rebroadcast of it. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.